When you wake up in the morning and reach for your phone, you probably don't stop to think about where it came from. The screen lights up, you scroll through your messages, you check your social media, maybe your emails. Everything feels perfectly normal. But behind that familiar glow is a story that reaches far across the Pacific Ocean, into factories filled with millions of workers, machines that never sleep, and a system that has quietly wrapped itself around the heart of America's daily life. That story begins in China. For decades, America has been proud to call itself the land of innovation. Silicon Valley was the symbol of progress, Wall Street the symbol of wealth, and Main Street the symbol of everyday independence. But if you look closer, independence has become a myth. Walk into almost any American household today and check the labels. The phone in your pocket, the television in your living room, the clothes on your back, the toys in your child's room, even the American flag waving on your porch, so much of it carries three simple words: made in China. It didn't happen overnight. In the beginning, Americans saw Chinese products as cheap and disposable. Plastic toys, low-quality electronics, clothes that faded after 2 washes. But what started as a trickle turned into a flood. American consumers wanted low prices, stores wanted higher profit margins, and factories in China were ready to deliver. Slowly, shelves in Walmart, Target, and countless other retailers became stacked with goods that were affordable, accessible, and always available. And once people got used to that comfort, they never wanted to give it up. By the time most Americans realized what was happening, dependence had already taken root. Small-town factories across the Midwest shut down because they couldn't compete with Chinese labor costs. Entire communities lost their jobs, their sense of pride, and their economic security. At the same time, ports in Los Angeles, Seattle, and New York became highways of cargo ships arriving from China, each vessel unloading thousands of containers filled with products that Americans couldn't stop buying. Think about it. If those shipments stopped tomorrow, what would happen? Supermarket shelves would thin out, electronic stores would turn into ghost towns, construction projects would stall, even hospitals would feel the impact. Because it's not just toys and t-shirts, China supplies America with critical medical equipment, pharmaceutical ingredients, building materials, and components for high-tech devices. The dependence goes far deeper than most people realize. And yet, people rarely notice. They enjoy the convenience, the affordability, the sense that life is running smoothly. But beneath that comfort lies a fragile truth. America's economy has become tied to a foreign power in ways that would have been unthinkable a generation ago. Politicians argue about it in Washington. Tariffs rise and fall. Trade wars come and go. But the everyday reality doesn't change. People still reach for the same products. Businesses still chase the lowest costs. And China remains at the center of it all. The story is not just about trade, it's about identity. For generations, Americans believed they built their own future. The car in the driveway was made in Detroit. The furniture came from North Carolina, the steel from Pittsburgh. There was pride in buying American, pride in producing American. But somewhere along the way, that pride was traded for something else, convenience. And once convenience becomes the priority, it's hard to turn back. Factories in Guangdong and Shanghai hum day and night, producing goods not just for their own people, but for American households thousands of miles away. Workers labor in conditions most Americans would never accept. Their efforts hidden behind shiny packaging and brand names that feel familiar on the outside, but tell a different story on the inside. Apple may be designed in California, but it is assembled in China. Nike may be headquartered in Oregon, but its shoes are stitched together across the Pacific. Even the simplest items, the light bulbs that keep your home bright, the chargers that power your devices, owe their existence to the world's largest manufacturing hub. This isn't just economics, it's culture. It's a quiet shift in how people live their daily lives, a shift so complete that most don't even notice it happening. Every swipe, every purchase, every comfort of modern American life carries with it a silent connection to a factory floor in China. And as that connection deepens, the line between independence and dependence becomes harder to see. The politicians talk tough on television. They raise their voices about tariffs, sanctions, and protecting American jobs. They speak of standing strong against Beijing, of reclaiming independence, of bringing manufacturing back home. The speeches are powerful, the words patriotic. But when the cameras turn off and the factories remain silent, the truth whispers louder than any speech. America still needs China. It is a strange kind of power, one that doesn't arrive with tanks or soldiers, but with shipping containers and assembly lines. Every year, billions of dollars in goods flow across the Pacific, and with them comes a subtle leverage that cannot be ignored. If those goods stopped flowing, America would feel it immediately, not in some distant battlefield, but in the aisles of its supermarkets, in the warehouses of its businesses, in the homes of its families. Dependence doesn't look dramatic on the surface, but it can be just as dangerous as any weapon. Imagine a child's birthday party without balloons, toys, or decorations. Imagine a holiday season with empty shelves where gifts should be. Imagine hospitals unable to stock the equipment they need, or builders forced to halt construction because vital parts are missing. These are not distant hypotheticals. They are real vulnerabilities hiding beneath everyday routines. The convenience people take for granted is built on a fragile chain, and much of that chain runs straight through China. And yet, it is not simply a matter of trade. It is a matter of influence. The more America consumes, the more leverage China gains. With every dollar spent on imported goods, with every contract signed by multinational corporations, a thread is added to a web of interdependence. China doesn't need to shout about its power. It simply lets the numbers speak. The numbers are undeniable, and they tilt in one direction. Some argue this is just the nature of globalization, that the world is interconnected, and dependence is unavoidable, but others see something deeper, something more troubling. A gradual erosion of self-reliance. Once upon a time, America's power came from its ability to build, to produce, to stand on its own. Now, even its symbols of innovation, the smartphones, the laptops, the electric cars, are entangled with supply chains that stretch across oceans, tied to decisions made in boardrooms far from American soil. There are those who try to fight back. Politicians call for reshoring, for building factories at home again, for giving American workers a chance to reclaim what was lost. Some companies experiment with Made in USA labels, hoping to stir pride in consumers. But the reality is harsh. Costs are higher, production is slower, and the global market doesn't wait for sentiment. Consumers, no matter how patriotic, often choose the cheaper option. And that cheaper option almost always comes stamped with the same three words: Made in China. Meanwhile, China evolves. No longer just the producer of cheap toys and low-quality goods, it has become a hub of advanced technology, green energy, and innovation. It invests in infrastructure, in global trade routes, in digital platforms that reach across borders. While America debates its own identity, China quietly builds its own future, and in many ways it builds America's too. But this story is not only about economics or politics. It is about trust, and about what happens when trust becomes fragile. If relations between the two nations sour, if conflict rises, the impact won't just be felt in government halls. It will be felt in the everyday lives of millions of people who rely on the invisible ties of trade. The dinner table, the classroom, the hospital, the workplace, all of them are touched by this relationship, whether people realize it or not. And so the question lingers, heavier with each passing year. Can America still call itself independent if its independence relies so deeply on another? Can a nation truly lead the world when so much of its daily life is imported from abroad? The words "land of the free" carry enormous weight, but freedom itself becomes complicated when it depends on someone else's factories, someone else's workers, someone else's choices. In the end, this is more than a trade story. It is a reflection of power in the 21st century, not power that conquers with weapons, but power that conquers with necessity. America can debate, resist, negotiate, and threaten. But as long as its people continue to fill their homes with goods stamped from overseas, the balance will remain the same. The real battlefield is not on foreign soil. It is in the choices made at cash registers, in the quiet acceptance of convenience over self-reliance, in the comfort of a life built on someone else's labor. And the question that remains, unspoken but unavoidable, is this: what happens when the convenience disappears? What happens when the comfort is gone, when the shelves are empty, when the hidden cost of dependence finally comes due?